fall of 1912, tensions between the Ottoman Empire and its Balkan neighbors were at their breaking point. The First Balkan War began between the Balkan states of Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and the Ottoman Empire. Directly after the Treaty of London in 1913, the conflict was reignited into the Second Balkan War, and a year after that, the Great War. The tensions that grew between the Balkan and European powers contributed to the beginning of World War I. The decline of the Ottoman Empire began in the 16th century, and the decrease in central authority led to unrest among their subjects, as well as revolutionary acting within their borders. Diplomatic issues within the Balkan region existed since the Greek War for Independence in the 1820s, but have come to a head in the 20th century. Austria-Hungary had occupied Bosnia-Herzegovina since 1878, and then, in 1908, without the approval of other great powers, Austria-Hungary officially annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina. This greatly upset Russia and Serbia. Russia had been trying to organize an agreement with Austria-Hungary that allowed Russian access to the Turkish Straits, which would have bolstered trade. However, when Austria-Hungary annexed Bosnia-Herzegovina, they did it without the assurance they would support Russia's interest. Due to domestic troubles, Russia would not take action, and Serbia could not hope to stand against Austria-Hungary alone. The Balkan Alliance began to form in 1891, when Greek ambassadors suggested to Sofia and Belgrade that they should formulate a plan to attack the Ottoman Empire. An attempt at the alliance was unsuccessful, but it planted the idea of a unified rebellion against the Ottoman Empire. On March 13, 1912, Serbia and Bulgaria created a secret treaty against the Ottoman Empire in which Serbia would gain land north of the Sar Mountains, Bulgaria would receive the territory east of the Struma River and the Rhodope Mountains. Macedonia was left to be divided between them and Serbia later. In the May of 1912, Bulgaria also signed a treaty with Greece. At the same time, Serbia secretly allied Montenegro, completing what would be known as the Balkan League. Montenegro was a small country with very little land or power. Indeed, their army more closely resembled a militia, which had very little combat experience. King Nikolai of Montenegro decided to join the war because he saw it as his nation's only option to grow more powerful. Russia was inclined to pursue their interests in the Balkan region and held a minor grudge against Austria-Hungary for the annexation of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Russia hoped that the Balkan League would invade Austria-Hungary, but instead, the Balkan League turned their sights against the Ottoman Empire. Serbia agreed to send 150,000 men, and Bulgaria agreed to send 200,000 men. When the war began, Serbia and Montenegro actually raised 250,000 men, Bulgaria raised 400,000 men, and Greece raised 28,000 men. However, the Greeks also had their own navy. Greece's navy heavily contributed to the Balkan victory. Their superior communication and training allowed for full naval control for the Balkan League, preventing the Ottomans from rapidly moving troops to the Balkans from Libya, where they previously been fighting against Italy. The creation of this Balkan alliance worried the other great powers, and they attempted to stop any conflict from occurring for fear of losing their own power in the region. Despite the efforts of the other great powers, on October 8, 1912, Montenegro began the Balkan War by declaring the war on the Ottoman Empire. Shortly after, the rest of the Balkan League got involved. The war continued on, the great powers began to get worried. The Balkan states had acted against their approval, which did not spell good things for the powers' future interests. In November of 1912, Germany, Italy, and Austria renewed the Triple Alliance in preparation for a greater conflict. Much of the European press believed that tension growing in the Balkans would soon result in larger repercussions. After 2 months of fighting, an armistice or peace was signed on December 3, 1912, by the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Serbia at Chatelza, Greece. At the time, Greece refused to sign the armistice and continued fighting. Peace negotiations soon went underway, with ambassadors arriving at London. The first meeting of the London Peace Conference was on December 3, 1912. At the same time, European representatives met in an ambassadors' conference in order to ensure that the interests of the great powers were being protected. The Balkan League immediately demanded that all territories be affirmed in the treaty. The Ottoman Empire signed, agreeing to all conditions in the initial treaty. After signing, the Ottoman Empire lost almost all power in Europe within a few weeks. Despite this, Negotiations were proceeding slowly due to arguments between the great powers and the Balkan League over territory disagreements. However, on January 23, 1913, a coup d'etat in the Ottoman Empire took Kamil Pasha out of power. Nizam Pasha was assassinated, and the Young Turk Party took control under Enver Bey Pasha. Also known as the Committee for Union and Progress, the Young Turks aimed to restore the power of the Ottoman Empire. They wanted to continue the First Balkan War in order to keep Adrianople, which was one of the 3 cities that had not been captured yet by the Balkan League. On January 30th, they denounced the armistice. The First London Peace Conference of 1913 had failed, and the conflict resumed. On March 28, 1913, Adrianople was captured, and peace negotiations began once more. Highly contested topics during the negotiations were the fate of the Aegean Islands, financial troubles, and Albanian independence. Serbia and Greece delayed signing of the treaty in hope of more discussion around Albania and the Aegean Islands with the great powers. After the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, Albania declared independence in Vlorë, November 28, 1912. They were supported by Austria-Hungary because of their value in preventing Serbia from access to the Adriatic Sea, and as well as Italy due to their own personal ambition. Due to the great powers' involvement, Serbia is forced to concede, despite their interest in Albania's land. Albanian independence led to the increased pursuit by Serbia and Greece in Macedonia, which began the conflict that would erupt into the Second Balkan War. On May 27th, Sir Edward Grey, London representative of the Ambassadors' Conference, set an ultimatum for the Balkan delegates: either sign this treaty or depart from London immediately. The Balkan powers finally signed the Treaty of London on May 30th, 1913, although it satisfied none of the League besides Montenegro. The ending of the London Peace Conference set the groundwork for the Second Balkan War. Towards the end of the negotiations in London, Greek and Serbian reluctance to sign the treaty allowed Bulgaria to mobilize their forces to defend Macedonia from Serbia and Greece. Bulgaria had proved itself to be incredibly powerful during the First Balkan War, but despite an acknowledgement from the Balkan League, Bulgaria was denied their ethnic territories. During the Second Balkan War, Bulgaria attempted to reaffirm its claims over Macedonia, but they ultimately failed. Though the great powers did not desire a major war, their involvement in the Balkan region brought tensions to a breaking point. The most notable instance of this was Serbia and Austria-Hungary's growing feud. Serbia's southern claims had been satisfied by the Balkan Wars, but their northern claims, which were in Austro-Hungarian territory, had yet to be achieved. A powerful organization within Serbia, the Black Hand, saw their opportunity to weaken the Austro-Hungarian Empire and took it, setting off a conflict that would change modern history forever.